My mother-in-law called me a fortune hunter, so I made sure she saw my inheritance surpass her son's. The insult came at our wedding reception, hissed loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "She's chasing our family's wealth," Vivian muttered to her sister as I cut the cake 20 feet away. Poor Nathaniel doesn't see it, but I do. I met Nathaniel in graduate school, both of us broke, living on instant noodles and student loans. Our love grew over shared textbooks and late-night library study sessions. When he proposed with a ring he'd saved 6 months to buy, I said yes because he made me laugh, not for any trust fund. But Vivian saw my second-hand clothes and assumed I was after money. For 3 years, she made her disdain clear. She'd comment on my convenient choice of husband whenever I wore something new. She'd reminisce about Nathaniel's ex, a lawyer from old money who fit their world. At family dinners, she'd discuss inheritance details, watching me for signs of greed. When Nathaniel gets the estate, she'd say, he'll need a wife who values tradition. The irony was rich. She didn't know my grandmother had quietly built a fortune. While Vivian flaunted her family's modest wealth, my grandmother, starting from nothing, amassed millions through real estate. She lived simply, driving the same car for 20 years, never mentioning her wealth. I alone knew of the inheritance, having managed her finances during her final illness. Every deed, every investment, I'd seen it all. The will's reading was set for a Tuesday afternoon. My grandmother's lawyer asked both families to attend. Nathaniel thought it was a formality, maybe a small gift for the granddaughter who cared for her. I smiled and said nothing. Vivian arrived in her best pearls, ready to play the gracious matriarch. She brought her sister to witness what she expected to be my meager bequest. The lawyer listed minor gifts to charities, then reached the main bequest. To my beloved granddaughter, who showed me true family. Vivian's smile faded as the assets mounted. The downtown office building, the apartment complex across the river, the stock portfolio, the vacation homes. The room fell silent. The estate's value, the lawyer said, is about $47 million. Nathaniel's inheritance? $2.3 million. Vivian's jaw dropped, her sister steadying her. The woman who'd called me a gold digger watched me inherit 20 times more than her son. "I suppose," I said sweetly, "you'll revise your Christmas guest list." But that was just the start. 3 days later, I found something in my grandmother's papers that changed everything. In her study, I sorted through a box of personal documents, birth certificates, old photos, letters tied with ribbon. Then I saw it, a manila envelope marked Vivian in my grandmother's handwriting. Inside were chilling documents, 1960s property deeds, bank statements, and a letter from her final months. "My dearest granddaughter," it read, "if you're reading this, you found what I hid for 60 years. Use this wisely." Vivian Morrison was born Vivian Kowalski. Her father, my business partner, stole $800,000 from our real estate venture in 1962 and disappeared. I tracked him for years, only to find he died broke in Nevada, leaving his daughter alone. She changed her name, invented a new past, and married into what she thought was wealth. She never knew the fortune she envied was partly built on her father's theft. I've seen her scorn you, unaware her lifestyle rests on my loss. Do what you will. Love, Grandmama. I read it 3 times, stunned. Vivian, who mocked my roots, was a thief's daughter. Her social status was a lie, built on money stolen from my grandmother. The envelope held more. Records of the debts my grandmother paid off for 15 years after the theft, insurance papers from her near ruin, and a 1985 investigator's report detailing how Vivian erased her past as Vivian Kowalski. She'd faked college references, lied about her age, and crafted a false history to marry rich. She was the gold digger. I sat in my grandmother's chair, mind racing. This explained her need to seem refined, her obsession with lineage, her fear of exposure. She'd projected her crime onto me. What to do? I could have filed it away, but her years of slights, her attempts to turn Nathaniel against me, demanded action. I copied the documents, locking the originals in a safe deposit box. I called my grandmother's investigator, Detective Reynolds, who specialized in background checks. "Verify this," I said, "and build a report." 3 weeks later, Reynolds delivered a damning dossier. She confirmed every detail and found more lies. Vivian claimed a Vassar degree, but the college had no record. She spoke of a Virginia horse farm that never existed. Her society friendships, mostly fabricated. The woman who judged me had built her life on lies, but exposure alone felt too easy. I needed my grandmother's precision to end this. The chance came 6 weeks later at Vivian's charity gala for the Children's Hospital. It was her perfect stage, hosting 200 elite guests. The mayor, council members, hospital board, business leaders, and society women she craved approval from. "I hope you'll attend," she said at dinner, her tone falsely sweet, though such events might overwhelm you. Even after my inheritance, she couldn't resist. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied. The gala was at the country club, where she'd humiliated me at our wedding. She'd hired an orchestra and imported flowers, the room glowing with crystal and candles. Vivian, in the family's heirloom diamonds, soaked up praise for her breeding. The hypocrisy was galling. During dinner, she spoke on family legacies and the duty of the wealthy to give back. "Some of us," she said, staring at me, "no nobility comes from bloodlines, not bank accounts." The crowd nodded. I stood. "Actually," I said, my voice clear, "I'd like to speak on legacies." Vivian paled, unable to stop me without a scene. "Many know I inherited my grandmother's estate," I said, "but she left more truth." I held up a document, the investigator's summary, styled like a medical report. This genealogical study, for the hospital's donor records, reveals Vivian's story. Did you know her real name is Vivian Kowalski? Her father, Peter Kowalski, stole $800,000 from my grandmother in 1962. The room went quiet. "The report," I said, passing copies, "shows how she reinvented herself. New name, new history, a fake Vassar degree, a non-existent Virginia farm." Guests read, shocked. "The irony," I continued, "is that the wealth she married into came partly from her father's theft. She's lived off my family's loss while calling others gold diggers." Vivian shouted, "This is slander. You can't prove it." "I can," I said calmly. "Every document is verified by court records and investigators. I'm not sharing this to shame her," I told the room, "but to right a wrong. The $800,000 stolen is worth $6.2 million today. So I'm donating that amount to the hospital tonight to settle this debt." The applause was thunderous. Vivian stood frozen, her world crumbling. Society women whispered, council members frowned at the documents. I added, "I'm founding the Meredith Foundation to aid fraud victims because theft's harm lingers." As I sat, guests congratulated me, pledging support. Vivian fled, leaving her purse and dignity behind. The next day, reporters called about the scandal. The DA asked about prosecution. Social clubs dropped Vivian. Magazines fact-checked exposés. Nathaniel called, voice heavy. "Is it true?" "Every word," I said. "Did you marry me for this? A revenge plot?" "No," I said softly. "I learned this after our wedding. I loved you when we were broke students." Her lies don't change that. "What should I do?" "Nothing, you're not responsible for her past. You defended our marriage, that's enough." That night, he said, "She's gone." Left town, drained her accounts, no address. "How do you feel?" "Relieved," he admitted, "and ashamed of it." "You're not to blame," I said. "She was toxic. She knew her past," I added. "That's why she attacked me, to hide her truth. Will she return?" "No, her identity was here. She can't face the shame." Vivian never came back. 6 months later, Nathaniel's uncle said she'd moved to Florida using her maiden name, claiming to be a widow robbed by stepchildren. The scandal had upsides. My hospital donation drew attention, bringing donors to the Meredith Foundation. Within a year, we helped 300 fraud victims. Vivian's exposure inspired others to share stories of toxic relatives hiding behind false facades. Clara wrote to me about her sister, who'd borrowed family money while hiding a gambling addiction. "Your story gave me courage to tell the truth," she said. "I learned truth matters more than protecting lies. My grandmother kept those documents for a reason. Truth waits for the right moment to spark change." A year later, Nathaniel and I rebuilt ties with his father's family, free of Vivian's poison. His uncle admitted he'd suspected her lies but avoided confronting them. 2 years later, the hospital named a new wing for low-income children after my grandmother. "Your truth made this possible," the director wrote. My grandmother's pain had built a legacy of good. 3 years later, pregnant, we discussed names. "Meredith," Nathaniel suggested. "I want something for what she taught me," I said. "Truth's power, patience over revenge." "Veritas," I proposed. Latin for truth, strong but not strange. "Veritas Morrison," he said. "Perfect for a strong girl with a grandmother's fortune and a legacy of exposing lies." By the way, he said, my mother's in Naples, posing as a Charleston widow, targeting a car dealer. His daughter-in-law, a genealogist, found everything, the Kowalski story, the gala. She was kicked out, unashamed, claiming she'd find better prospects. "She's telling people we stole her inheritance," he said. "Typical," I replied. "Let her lie, the truth catches up. The internet makes hiding impossible." 6 months later, she'd failed in 3 Florida social circles, exposed by online searches. A year later, she was in Arizona as Victoria Morrison, a supposed art dealer living in a one-bedroom, failing to scam anyone. She's pitiful now, the investigator said. That was the last of Vivian. The Meredith Foundation grew, helping over 1,000 fraud victims. I learned truth, preparation, and patience defeat manipulation. Vivian underestimated me. She was wrong. When Veritas was born, I promised her the full truth of our family, no secrets to be used against her. That was my grandmother's gift, truth, the greatest inheritance, untouchable by lies. 5 years later, a death certificate arrived. Vivian died alone in Phoenix, her belongings in 2 boxes, her account at $247. Her fractured identity left even the coroner confused. I felt only sadness for a life lost to deceit. How do you feel? Nathaniel asked. Empty. She never embraced her truth. Do you regret it? No, she had to be stopped. Truth outweighs comfort. Veritas at 4 was fearless, secure. She'd grow up knowing honesty trumps lies, ready to face manipulation. That was my legacy to her, truth used wisely. My grandmother gave me more than wealth, the understanding that integrity matters more and the best revenge is becoming what your enemy could never be, honest, generous, unbreakable. Our future was free from lies, and that was worth more than any fortune.